Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. And today I have a super exciting video for you because I'm gonna be talking about a palette that I've been able to completely use up, which is the Merry Christmas palette from Oden's Eye. So hopefully you will enjoy this. I know I probably titled this like Project Pan Finale, but it's not a finale like in a way that I'm not ending my Project Pans for this year. I've just finished this palette on its own, and the other products that I have in my project pans are still continuing and moving on. I just want to make that clear, but I wanted to have like a catchy title. And we're only going to be talking about this palette, which I think is still going to be exciting because this is a 16 pan. So, you know, I did a lot of work. So, hopefully you'll enjoy this update. I'm going to tell you everything about this palette, how long it took to hit a pan on each shade, to use up all the shades, and kind of all the statistics. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. In case you're new here, hi, my name's Sasha. I love indie makeup, I love colorful makeup, I love eyeshadows as well, clearly, and I love panning. So if any of that is of interest to you, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to this channel and hit a like. Also, let me know what was the latest, if you've ever been able to use up a palette, and if so, what is the name of the palette? I would really love to know. I hope the lighting is okay. It's kind of like afternoon and it's super cloudy and like rainy outside. So I don't know if this lighting is okay, but you don't need to see much. And I also want to preface that I've been working on this palette for this year, last year, and maybe even the year before. What is it? 25, 24. I bought this in 2022. So I think I was working on it for the year 23, 24, and 25. 3 years of working on this palette. So there's a lot to talk about. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. So now let's jump into it. This is the Merry Christmas palette. I haven't taken a progress pictures of this in the previous years, and even in this year, the progress pictures will be kind of complicated because at the end of last year, I decided to depot the couple sheets that were left in this palette and just I'd repress them into other palettes. Like for example, I had them repressed in this Earth palette that I finished last year and stuff like that. So it's been kind of, I don't have like this progress of this palette as a palette for this year. And even before, I would only sometimes take a picture after hitting a pan, but I wasn't doing like a typical panda palette. It was just a palette that I would focus on the whole year. So if I have any progress pictures or videos, I'm probably gonna take screenshots from my like older videos to show you how this looked like, and photos, and if I have any pictures on my Instagram as well, because so if it's not the best quality, I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna tell you all about the stats for this palette. This palette, by the way, had 118 uses when we rolled it at the beginning of this year, so 118, and now we're at 260. So I was able to use it 142 times this year, which is insane. And yeah, it took in total 260 uses to completely finish this palette up. This is how the palette looks like right now, but it has been looking like this for a very long time since it was depotted. So let me just kind of walk you through. First, how long it took to hit each pan. The way I count my uses of a palette is I count individual shades. I might even pop up a picture of one of my spreadsheets so that you can see. So I have a slot for each shade and I count how many times I've used each shade. But then also every single day I use a palette for a look, and it doesn't matter whether I use it for one eyeshadow or 5 or 11. Every single time I reach for the palette, every day I reach for that palette, I also count that as one use of that palette. In a sense. So 260 is the number of looks I've used that for, the number of days I've used this palette, and then I'm also going to share with you how many times I've used each shade. I just want to make that clear because, sometimes these things get confusing, and I know every single person counts these things differently. So just, I want you to know what's my way of doing this. So, I know the first shade that I was able to hit pan on because that one was really easy and was the first shade called Elf Wish. It's my most watched video on my TikTok, by the way. I think it has like, I don't know, last time I checked, it had like over 20,000 views, which is insane because I normally have like 7 to like 1,500 views. So it was this first shade. This one was very creamy, very emollient, and it was like a light, soft green to peach to gold. It was a very beautiful inner corner highlight, face highlight. Beautiful, beautiful shade. It did crease on me quite a bit if I wanted to use it all over the lid, but in the inner corner, it was beautiful. And this one only took me 14 uses to hit pan on. And I was using that palette for 31st time at that time. So 31 looks done with this palette, 14 uses of this to hit pan on. Then the next pan I was able to hit is the shade Best Wish, which was a matte shade, and it was very like a pistachio green type of shade. So that was the second one. It took me 19 uses to hit a pan on that. And it happened when I was using this pad for the 41st time. Another one was the shade New Year, which was this really deep shimmery green, like a pine green. This one only took 12 uses to hit pan on because I would use it in like the second half of the lid, and also I would use my fingers with it, so you kind of dip more. So New Year took 12 uses, and it happened when I was using this pad for the 60th time. Next pan right the next day was Snowman, which was this beautiful light kind of beigey soft green color. It was a shimmer shade. It was beautiful. At the end I also used it a lot as a highlighter because it was beautiful highlighter, but in the first year of or year and a half of owning this pad, I would only use it in my inner corner and sometimes on the lid. So this one took 15 uses to hit pan on, and it happened on the 61st use of that palette. Next up was one of my favorite shades in the entire palette, and it was the shade Matcha Cookie, the second shade, and it was a matcha green matte shade. That one took me 19 uses to hit pan on, the same as Best Wish. Most of the eyeshadows here, the matte eyeshadows that I would use as eyeshadow and not for other purposes, which you will hear about later, took me around 19 to 25 uses. That's my general amount of times I need to use an Oden's Eye matte shade in these square pans. So Best Wish, so Matcha Cookie, 19 uses, and it happened on the 62nd time using this palette as a whole. So it happened 3 days after each other. The next was this shade called Little Star, which was a light pink to peach. It had a lot of pink in it, but it also had like a peachy gold shine to it. So it was a beautiful shimmer. This one took me 16 uses to hit pan on, and it happened when I was using this palette for the 71st time. Next, we have the shade All Right, which is this beautiful, vibrant, kind of pumpkiny or shimmer orange shade. All Right took only 10 uses to hit pan on because, again, I would use my finger with it and I would use it all over the lid. So I would dip a lot in this shade. So only 10 uses to hit pan, and I was using this pad for the 73rd time. Next up is the shade Happy Ending, which is here. Now it looks brown because I actually mixed a brown shade there, but it was a black matte shade. And Happy Ending took 38 uses to hit pan on. I would mostly use it as a liner. I wouldn't really use it too much like as an eyeshadow in my outer corner because I wasn't that into wearing black as an in outer corner shade, but I would use it all the time as my liner because I do prefer black eyeshadow as an eyeliner every single day. So it took 38 uses to hit pan on, and it happened when I was using this pad for the 77th time, sorry. Next up was the shade Jingle Bell, which was this beautiful kind of goldy green shimmer. And this one I think would take a lot quicker, but this one was kind of like, it was a super soft formula. Like the particles there were super, super soft, unlike, for example, the shade New Leaf, which you actually saw each particle, but this one was super, super soft, but it was so tightly packed. So like, and sometimes it almost hard band. It never like fully hard band, but it was kind of very close to that. Some shimmers from Oden's I do that. For example, even like in the Psalm 102 pad that I'm panning this year, this shade does that a lot. It's kind of like almost as if it was too hard to pan. So this one took forever to hit pan on because it was very tightly packed. Like I feel like if this, like if I were to count it, I feel like maybe here was like 1 gram of product and here was like 2.5 grams, like just by the sheer volume of the particles that were inside. So it would take a while. It took me 23 uses, which for example this one was 10. So it took way longer to hit pan on the shade Jingle Bell, and that happened when I was using the palette for the 78th time. Next one was the shade Christmas Tree, this one, which was a, again, like foresty green matte shade. Christmas Tree took 20 uses to hit pan on. I would use it all over my second half of the crease and all over my outer corner as a deepening up shade. I loved this shade. And so yeah, 20 uses, and also on the 78th use of this palette together with the shade Bless, this one. Bless is was like a magenta pink shimmer. It took me 11 uses to hit pan on that. So again, 11, 10, 23. Sorry, this one, 23. So, you know, just to understand that the formula is a lot different. This one wasn't my favorite shade in the palette because it was too magenta, pinky, and it didn't really work for me in this color story. Like, yes, there was like a orangey brown matte and a normal deep brown matte. So technically you could have used it in that way, but I never liked how that looked on me. And the thing is, I do like it with other formulas and other shades in like other palettes. So I think it was just like the specific undertone of this one was a bit too much for me. So yeah, it took 11 uses, and again on the 78th use of this palette. Then right the next day, I hit a pan on the shade Santa Star. This one. This one only took 8 uses, and I'm pretty sure that like 3 of them were on my nails or in other areas than my eyelids, because this was such a disgusting shade. It was a gold shimmer, but it was like kind of like almost like a rusty gold. Like it had a lot of depth to it. It wasn't like cute sparkly gold. It was like very deep. It was super chunky. It was creasing on me, and I hated this shade. Like that was genuinely disgusting. What I did after hitting pan on it, I actually took a couple of these shades eventually and used them for a nail polish. I would just scrape them all out with a mixing medium for nail polishes. And this is a beautiful nail polish. Like now that it's in the nail polish bottle, it is a beautiful sparkly goldy nail polish. But on the eyes, it was so dirty, so rusty, so... no, it just didn't look nice on me, and it was so chunky. So yeah, 8 uses, and it was on the 79th use of this palette. Next up we have Poinsettia, which was this vibrant red matte shade. On me, it actually looked more magenta than red. I think it's my undertone because I am quite like warmer olive. So on me, it didn't work. It was disgusting shade. It wasn't like this red, for example. It's very browny. Like these browny reds work for me, but this one had too much pink in it. It was very like cool tone red, and it looked really, really bad. So this one took 14 uses to hit pan. It was so powdery. That's another thing. Like it was so powdery. I had mess all over my under eyes, as well as the shade Santa Star, the gold one. Like these were so extremely messy. I don't know if I had like a faulty palette, but these were genuinely making me question Oden's eye formula. But the rest of the palette was absolutely wonderful. So it was just these two shades, and it could be the fact that it just wasn't my undertone. But these were like so bad. So Poinsettia took 14 uses to hit pan on and 86 uses of this palette to reach that goal. Next up we have hot cocoa. That will be another pan. But before I actually hit the pan in hot cocoa, I've scraped a couple of these shades into my nail polishes. So as I said, it took me 14 uses to hit pan on the shade Elf Wish. After 41 uses of using, there was just a little bit around the borders and it was too oily for me. It started to like kind of seep oil out of it, and it wasn't comfortable to use it even in my inner corners because it also created kind of like a waxy feel on my lids. So after using it 41 times, which again, I've hit pan on it after 14 uses, so I had really large pan happening in here. I decided to scrape the last bit into a clear nail polish and make it into a sparkly, beautiful nail polish. I still do have that nail polish. I have only like tiny little layer of it because it's beautiful. It's that beautiful goldy peachy green that I absolutely adore. And that happened when I was using this pad for the 92nd time. Together with this one, on the same day, I also used the shade Blast, which I haven't touched after hitting pan. So 14 uses to hit pan on it, I think, right? No, I've used it 11 times to hit pan, then I used it another 3 times and decided that I really do not like this shade. So I scraped it out and again used it for a nail polish. The next shade for that was the shade Poinsettia, which I used 2 times more after hitting pan. So on its 16th use, I just decided to give up, and it's a beautiful nail polish. I'm still using it, and as a nail polish, it is actually really bright red, but on my eyes, it's just really magenta pinky. Like, I don't know how, I know how that works. I know it's undertones, but yeah, so this one really wasn't something that I would like to wear on my face. The next up was the shade Santa Star. It's also a nail polish. It's the goldy shimmer. I've only used it one more time, so 8 uses to hit pan, and one more use I really tried, but I could not bear it. So after 9 uses, I just made that into nail polish. Like, the funny thing is, I love this palette, and most of these shades I truly thought that are absolutely wonderful, and I love them as eyeshadows. But there was this corner of these like pinky reddish golds that I just could not get over, and I just could not use that. So that's the Santa Star. And then there was the shade Happy Ending, which, as I said, it took me 38 uses to hit pan on it. When I started using this palette, whenever I would use this as a liner, I would mix it with Duraline or setting spray. Nowadays, and I would like spray the setting spray into the pan. Nowadays, if I do want to do this, I just coat my brush in the shade and then spray just the brush. But back then, I don't know what I was thinking. I was spraying the setting spray right into the pan, which created kind of like a really hard, kind of almost like a hard cement in the pan. So it lost the pigment and it didn't work as a normal matte eyeshadow. And it was so messy to use it as a liner because it's already so dry and so hardened. So after the next 3 uses, so when I used it 41 times on my eyes, I decided to again turn it into nail polish. There was only little of it left. Like, it was very shallow in the pan, and there was a huge pan in the middle, if I remember that correctly. So yeah, I have other black shades in my collection. Like, even the Salmon palette that I mentioned has a matte black, so I can use that if I want. So this one was also turned into nail polish. So that was when I was using this palette for the 92nd time. Then on the 96th time of using this palette, I hit a pan on the shade Hot Cocoa, which is this brown matte shade that was here. It was very like reddish brown, like a very warm brown. And this one took me 30 uses to hit pan on. It was beautiful. I loved using it both with the kind of orangey brownish matte, as well as the like super like matcha green shades. It just looked beautiful. So hot cocoa took 30 uses. Next up was the shade gingerbread, which was the kind of like orangey brown matte. It took me 34 uses to hit pan on, and it happened on the 107th time of using this pad. But before that, when I was using this pad for 105 times, I was able to completely use up the shade Snowman, which was this shimmery shade, that kind of like beigey green. And then I hit this pan, and then I hit the pan on the shade gingerbread. Next up, there are a couple of shades that I was able to finish. So on the 115th use of this palette, I was done with the shade New Year, which was this shimmery deep green. And that was a couple days before the end of last year. Another one I was able to finish before the end of last year was the shade Hot Cocoa. Which was at 31 uses. I've only used it one more times after hitting pan, because I scraped the rest and turned that into, I don't know if it was like a new eyeshadow that I forgot to track, or if I used that as a, no, I made that into nail polish as well, because it started to kind of have a lot of fallout, and the formula just kind of changed a bit. So that one was also turned into a nail polish. Then on the last day, I don't know if it was the last day of last year or on the day that I was filming my project pan for this year, but I was able to use up the shade Little Star, so 118th use of this palette, and in total I was able to get 35 uses of this shade. And I think I was wearing that in my like 25 things to pan in 2025 video last year at the end of the year. So that was my last used up shade from this collection. Then I was able to finish the shade Best Wish this year. Best Wish took me 59 uses to completely use up, and it happened when I was using this pad for 166th time. Next up is the shade right next to it, which is Matcha Cookie. This one took me 64 uses to finish, and 173 looks with this palette. Then I was able to hit my last pan, which was in the shade New Leaf, which was this cool toned green, kind of like almost turquoisey green. That was my last pan that I needed to hit, and that was the only pan that I was missing from this palette for this year. All the other shades already had a pan before moving into this year. So this one took me 21 uses to hit a pan, and it happened when I was using this palette for 196 times. 2 looks later, so 198 uses with this palette, I was able to completely use up the shade Jingle Bell, and this one took me 67 uses, which is quite a lot considering that it was my all over the lid shade. But again, it was one of those like harder, very tightly packed formulas. Next shade finish was the shade Gingerbread, which I also used as blush for like 3 months. Kind of from the second half of the spring to like middle of summer. So Gingerbread had 112 uses in it, but that was because I would mostly use it as a blush, and I would mix this with like a beigey shade to make it obviously like less pigmented. So it was used on my cheeks, and obviously I wouldn't really layer it too much, so that's why it took me 112 uses, and it happened when I was using this palette for 207th time. Then the last three shades. So we have All Right. All Right took me 35 uses to completely use up. And I was using this palette for 208 times. Then the shade New Leaf took me 65 uses to completely finish. And that was when I was using this palette for the 247th time. And today, at 260 uses of this palette, I was able to completely use up the shade Christmas Tree. It took me 78 uses. I used it for 5 uses yesterday to do my nails. I have like a soft green cream nail polish, then I used a matte top coat, and then with like a really dense stippling brush, I layered the shade Christmas Tree, which was that like very foresty green shade. And then today I have it in the outer corner. So I have kind of like light blue in the inner corner, kind of like a brown in the outer half of the crease, and then all in the outer corner I have the shade Christmas Tree. And as I said, it took me 78 uses to completely finish it, which is insane because I've been using it a lot, and this one was one of those super powdery shades. I think the ones that were really powdery for me from this palette were Happy Ending, which is the black, Poinsettia, which is the red, and then Christmas Tree. These were very, very powdery. But that's all that I was able to do with this palette. And now for the stats. So these palettes, I bought them as like a duo when they first launched. So I bought the Christmas Tree and I bought the Merry Christmas and the Christmas Eve at the same time when they originally launched in 2022. And these were, how much did they cost? Let me actually find it. $43.90. At least that's what the other other Christmas palettes are priced at. So $43.90. Yeah. And we were able to get 260 uses, which means that one look done with this palette, and obviously towards the end I would only use like one or two of the shades, because like if you have a shimmer orange and a deep green, like you're not gonna get that many looks together using both of them. So, and since this retails for $43.90, and I was able to get 260 uses, that means that one use is $0.16. So $0.16, so you need 16 cents to do one eye look with this. If I want to count down all the total uses of all the shades, so taking every single use of each shade and counting them together, in total counting down all the uses for each shades, it means it takes us to 726 total uses on all of these shades. And if we divide that by 260, which is the total uses of this palette, that means that on average for one look with this palette, I would use 2.79 eyeshadows, which I think makes sense most of the time. Like if I did my green look, I would use 3 mattes and 3 shimmers, so that's 6. But when the greens were out, or when I didn't want to use green, I would usually only use like either 2 to 3 shades, and obviously at the end I would only use one shade because that was the only one that was left. So that's for that. And if I were to count how much it costs to use one eyeshadow once, that would be $0.02. So one look done with this palette is $0.17, so it's 17 cents, and one eyeshadow used from this palette is approximately 2 cents. And to be honest, I do this type of makeup. Like, I am very, very heavy-handed with my eyeshadows. I pack them on and I want the most out of them. For most people, if you're like just soft, cutesy, stuff like that, it would probably take you like maybe 1,000 uses of this palette. I'm not kidding, like that's probably what would happen. And also, I use some of these eyeshadows as nail polishes, so otherwise it would be even more. Like, it would probably only cost like 0.001, so it would be like a tenth of a cent to use one eyeshadow. So I think you're definitely getting your money out of this. And now on average it would take me, okay, so for matte shades on average, from what I have here, which this one should be quite accurate, at least for hitting pan, not for using it up, because I've used a lot of them and on as a nail polish, but I've hit pan on all of them before using them as a nail polish. So on average for matte shades it takes me 24.37 uses to hit a pan, which makes sense because most of them were like 19 to 25 uses, so that makes sense. Hitting pan on a matte eyeshadow for me on Oden's Eye on square pans is 24.37 uses. Using them up takes me on average for this particular palette, which again I've used a couple of them as a nail polish, it takes me 58.25 uses, so almost 60 uses to completely use them up. And then for shimmers it takes me approximately 14.87 uses to hit a pan on, which again most of them were like 10, 11 or 15. And then it takes me 32.75 uses to completely use them up. So that's my averages. And I think I've said everything. Like, we know how much one use of each eyeshadow costs, how much one look costs. Obviously, since this is this palette is $43.90 and you have 16 eyeshadows inside. One eyeshadow, like the entire one eyeshadow, costs $2.74, and I am getting usually around like around like 45 uses out of every single eyeshadow. Since like for shimmers it's 32 on average and 58 for matte, on average it's 45 uses for me, for someone who really, really abuses makeup. And you have 20 grams of eyeshadow here. Oh, I should count how many, I should count the weight as well. So $43.90 divided by 20 grams. And then what? We were able to use this pad 260 times. So 260 divided by 20 grams. And then in total, all of these shades were counted up to 726 uses together of all of the eyeshadows. So we're also gonna count one use and the grams it takes. So 1 gram of eyeshadow in this palette, 1 gram of eyeshadow costs you $2.19. To use up a 1 gram of this palette, you approximately need to do 13 looks with it. And again, I said that one eye look on average takes me 2.79 eyeshadows to use, so I need to use almost 3 eyeshadows. I was able to use almost 3 eyeshadows to do 1 look, and I would have to do 13 looks to use up 1 gram of this eyeshadow, because I was able to use this palette for 260 looks and it has 20 grams, so that's 13. I hope that makes sense. And you would have to use 1 eyeshadow 36.3 times to again use up 1 gram. which that's more than one shimmer, because on average it takes me 32.75 uses of a shimmer shade to use them up. But to use 1 gram of eyeshadow on average, counting up all the uses, I would need to use one shade 36.3 times. So that's kind of all the stats from me. If there's any more that you would like me to incorporate, let me know. But I think that's all the stats I've always done. I've been able to completely use up the mini nude palette from Natasha Denona. I think I have a review or like this kind of stats video on my channel, so I will link that down below. I was also completely able to use up the Naked Cherry from Undergrow from Urban Decay, which I think is also on this channel. I had the Earth palette completely used up, and the mini like forest from Oden's Eye as well. So this is my third palette from Oden's Eye that I was able to completely use up, by the way. And all of these pads I was able to completely use up, and I have stats on them. I will leave them in the description down below, and what I can, I'm also gonna put in the little card. Oh my god, it's getting really, really dark. I hope you can still see me. I'm so sorry. But those are all the stats that I can think of from the top of my head. If there's any more that you would like me to include, please leave a comment down below, because I'm almost out of the Christmas Eve palette from this collection as well. I only have a couple shades that are currently in this Earth palette that are repressed here. And I think by the end of the year, I'm definitely gonna be able to completely use that one up as well, which would be amazing to have 2 palettes completely used up. So if there's any more statistics you like me to mention, let me know down below so that I can incorporate them into the next video with the Christmas Eve. But that is everything from the Merry Christmas. I will not be able to get any more uses out of it. This is how it looks like. I haven't cleaned up the pans because what's the purpose of that? So this palette is now going into my empties, and I'm gonna be mentioning that in my monthly empties and also in my yearly empties, and I'm so happy for this. Finally, it's gone. Like I've loved this palette. Clearly, I've loved this palette. It was just time to move on from it. So that's for this one, and au revoir. Have a great life. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know down below if you've ever been able to use up a palette. And with that being said, have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'll be super happy to see you tomorrow with another video. Bye.